Hi, Viji. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sadel. How are you?
I am good. I am good. Welcome to People, Passion, and Purpose podcast with Bungi. I think it's been a long time coming, and I'm very, very happy that considering all the things that have happened, the schedules and other things, you've come to this podcast. So, for me, it's a fanboy moment. Having you on the show. So, thank you so much, and I'm really excited to take this as a coaching conversation because I haven't prepared much. So I am like, whatever the client brings. So I'm like, it's Viji's space today. So you are the guest of honor. So
As
thank
long
you.
as I'm not the coach. So, so that's okay. Let's
Yeah,
go with that. So I didn't realize there. So I thought there was a 3P, but I'm realizing this is actually a
five,
4P because
five and a four. Yeah. Mm.
oh, including the podcast, it's a
Mm.
5, right? So yeah, people, passion, purpose, pungi, and podcast.
And podcast. Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
that's really cool because
Yeah.
I also oftentimes when I talk about coaching land up with P's, because our profession is so filled with all of this,
Filled
right?
with that. Yeah.
Purpose,
Passion.
potential, passion, whatever, right? Partnership. So I love sort of jamming
Uh,
a bit with the P's. So that's like a big thumbs up.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
And
Yeah.
everybody loves being at peace. So.
That's also true. One more P, right?
Yes. So Vijay, I think the first time, like I said, this is a fanboy space. The first time I think was a Coacharya webinar or somewhere. I think the first space, I think your voice announced that oh you've arrived, and I think even in this place, and I think there is that magic that Vijay adds to the entire conversation with just the voice. And any dull, boring conversation until then suddenly sparks into so much of joy after that. So I'm very curious, where is that joy coming from?
Oh, that's such a sweet question. No, but thank you so much. I mean, I know you've said such lovely things, and this is not the first time. I think even in our first chat,
Yeah,
you really
absolutely.
had such good things to say. So I think some of it is infectious. So I'll call you Sunil, right? That's how I know you. Somehow
Sunil,
I can't,
anything
I
works.
can't, I can't sort of get my finger around Pungi. So let's just say Sunil. Right? So though I know there's a story behind that as well, and you told me, and that was one of our icebreakers when we spoke. So Sunil, I think many of these things, especially joy, right, is very infectious. It's very difficult, um, when you are with people who give off that kind of a vibe, like this conversation, right? And this was actually supposed to happen before, and then we said we'll move it to 2024. Then suddenly I kind of said, hey, Sunil, are you game for this very short notice? Because I know that podcasters sometimes take their time and whatever, right? I mean, that's serious business, and you guys are doing a great service because you're kind of, I think, creating spaces for different voices to come, and that's a lovely thing you're doing, right? So I get it that there is work, but when I still throw that question to you, saying, Sunil, shall we? And then there was not even like 1% of hesitation, right? So when you have, I think, that kind of an enthusiasm, that kind of an energy, it's infectious. So one of the reasons, maybe, especially today, why I am feeling quite, upbeat and bright. See, I'm wearing like a nice bright orange shirt. Is also because of who you're sharing space with. So that's one part. But I think also, joy. If you really go back to when we were all kids, or I mean, even before we could speak, or just even have our voice. Joy is such a primal human emotion. In fact,
Correct.
a lot of the positive emotions are. Um, and I think as we grow up, somewhere along the way, there is, socialization that happens, and you're told how to laugh, how not to laugh, and I think there are a lot of fetters on how we express our emotions, including tears, right? I mean, this whole thing, just 2 days ago, I was having this conversation with another friend, really, on upbringing, and especially about raising boys, and this topic about saying that we got to why boys need to cry,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And I don't know where along the way they pick up that it's not
not
man
okay.
enough to shed a few tears, right? And I have found the strongest men to be the ones who are just so comfortable in their skin. So I think some of our very primal emotions we lose touch with. So the long answer to all this is, I think it's just, one part of me wanting to really, be in touch with my roots. And when I mean roots, I don't mean culture or anything, right? Just our very human roots. Why lose that along the way? So it's always good to be in a positive, joyous frame of mind, unless there is evidence to the contrary, right? I mean, it's like in law, innocent until proven guilty. So joyous and positive, unless there is a need to feel the other way, is perhaps how my mental state is most of the time, Sunil.
Wow. So I think I heard somewhere, Viji, that as we grow up, I think we learn to be sad.
Yeah.
Default is always happiness, joy, or that love, that peace that exists. You brought so many segues. One, you said you brought up the law space, then you brought up parenting, then you brought up, say, emotions and men, and you brought up childhood. So there's never a podcast that's complete with me without going to that early part of life. So how is it? Were you the first bench student or the middle one or the last bencher?
What's your guess?
I would say middle bencher first, and then maybe you would have graduated to the last, end of the benches, but not necessarily a first one initially. I mean, I don't know. I leave that to you.
I'm glad you put the rider. So maybe, it's interesting that you've said this because I think you have a good pickup on people. Interestingly, I've always been a first bencher student,
Okay.
right? Not for any other reason, because, why not sort of do things the right way? So I'm also not, while people do see me as a maverick and things like that, I'm usually quite a rule abiding one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I, in fact, I like, sort of rules, structure, processes, and more than sort of laying it down for others, I like being in those kind of, spaces, right? So if parents would tell you a few things, my first instinct would not be to question and say, hey, why? Or, why not? Or why not like this, right? I'm quite happy to be compliant, try, give that a shot, right? Play by, I mean, let's say this is your show, right? And you have certain you have a way of navigating the conversation. I'd be very happy to play along with you, unless I find something completely disconnected. When something is disconnected, I will, it's very difficult to get me to move forward. Okay, so I think first bencher from that sense. But I think also over the years, somewhere I've been very comfortable, you know being in any of those benches. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe the me that you see today is more middleish first, somewhere there. Because I think you also realize that it doesn't matter where you sit. You can still be who you are, irrespective of the place that is assigned to you or the place that you choose.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I think pretty much through my life, always been a very good, well, a good student. I mean, I studied most of my life in all girls school.
Mm-hmm.
So while I don't think I was ever the classic role model girl student, because I think I've tried a lot of things that were beyond, or that were not by definition for girls at that point of time. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about late 80s, early 90s. But for the most part, yeah, I think somewhere, uh, the good student, first bencher would be more like me.
Fantastic. But I like this space thing. It doesn't matter where you're sitting.
Yeah. It doesn't, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. Basically, because I was the last bencher, always sitting in the first one. So the last bencher vibes are always there. So I chose the last bench only because sometimes when the teacher is that side, I could eat something. Like there were a lot of foodies in the this thing, and they used to bring something or the other. So our like even before the class is actually over, or the first 2 hours of the over, our all of our dabbas would be closed. So that is one of the reasons last bench became so easy. And then they found out and they were like, Sunil, come first bench, sit here. And sometimes the first bench was the only bench in the entire row that was being occupied. So technically, I was still in the last bench.
Again, it's a frame of reference, right?
It's a frame of
Where you're
reference.
sort of
It
looking.
was
So the
so
other
close.
thing, since you spoke about this, was also, my height, right? So I was probably always one of the shortest in class.
Yeah.
So by default, you kind of always got seated right under the teacher's nose, and maybe that habit just sort of continued. But I must also tell you about this little secret, right? I mean, usually what is under your nose is what you rarely look at, right? So you're completely out of
Yeah,
the line
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
sight.
Absolutely. Somewhere like the radar has a blind spot for that particular place.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you said growing up in the 80s and 90s. So 80s and 90s for me, at least being almost like a 90s kid. For me, it was no phones, a lot of play, like truckload of friends everywhere. So how was it for you? I think you also have some space with Bangalore also being a reference point.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like the floor is open. Any adventures, any anecdotes, I am happy to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the happiest days of my life were my school days, childhood. And of course, I think college life was great. And again, I think growing up, I was a very happy child, I mean, the sense like, what's not to be happy, right? I mean, everything could be made into an occasion, right? You have a rain holiday, you have rains, you're holidaying. There's a flood, you're holidaying, right? I mean, recently Chennai went through very bad cyclones, and we were all, extremely upset, and there was a lot of, I won't say happy emotions, certainly not with the kind of loss and destruction, but I think growing up, when you're a child, somewhere you are not responsible for things. So it's so easy to just be happy. And I think while there was a television, I was never really too much of a TV kid. I was more an outdoorsy child always. Like, I mean, would love to run around trees, or, climb trees, or, I mean, those, what is it called? Those pull-up bars. So I would be monkeying
Mhm.
around, I mean, opportunity to eat street food. So all of this stuff, right? I mean, love lounging around in the rain, playing a lot of sport, of course, having a lot of friends. So I think it was lovely. And I think the other thing was, just this extended family network and social
Mhm.
system, right? Grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins, and I mean, even extended family. Today, I think a lot of that is really missing, and I don't necessarily blame anyone, because that's how the family system has also become.
Yeah.
It's just quite difficult, right? I mean, you have so many more people living in so many different parts of the world, so it's just practically very difficult. But I think those days, that used to be I mean, that used to be lovely, right? I mean, we used to just take it for granted. So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think when you grow up like that, you're very you're very well rounded. There are
Mm.
many factors that influence uh, one's growing up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think my like when you say cousins and other stuff, so I think my favorite memory is actually like when summer holidays used to come and my cousins used to come over. It was like I don't think we ever had a need for television because 8 o'clock sometimes like I was late to go to play, because the others would have started at 6:30, and
Yeah, yeah.
I was still then also very conscious of my beauty sleep. So I used to wake up at 8. And after 8, if you don't get up, they're like, like, Kasa Kudspeko, you get up. 8 is a deadline. No sleeping after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
And we used to sleep on the floor, like the entire this thing,
Yeah,
everybody
yeah, yeah,
sleeping
yeah.
on the floor. So they're like, we have to sleep the floor, you get up. So the 8 o'clock was the deadline. And as soon as that, brush your teeth and get out. So, and
Correct.
we used to only come because we were like dead hungry and like we needed something in the body. And so after refill, go back.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and if and again, right, if you miss a meal at one point of time, you can't just walk into the kitchen, open the
Ah,
refrigerator, right? I mean, literally, refrigerator itself was a, I mean, not
yeah.
a, I mean, it used to be for essentials, right? Small little thing, and
Mhm.
no question of storing of stuff. Just reach in and
No.
get snacks. None of that, right? And yet, I think. There's never been a time when one was, felt unfed or, undernourished anything. There was just enough, for us to, I think, lead rather healthy childhoods, right? I mean, this whole junk culture itself was not there. See, I mean, people often say that, I mean, today's youngsters really indulge in so much of junk, etc. But I don't blame them, Sunil, because if the whole environment is like that,
Mhm.
and every culture Yesterday I saw on Insta, right? I mean, I was just looking at some reels, and somebody had just put, and it was very nice. I mean, it's a very good thing, right? Good intent about how do you store pre-made tea mix, yeah, for a
Mm.
month. And it was really nice. I saw all that, and they said, okay, you can take it for travel. They said, all that is great, right? I mean, even I like those convenience of taking home stuff when I travel. But I was just thinking, right, what is the need to make and store this, right? And you can make your freshly ground chai. I mean, like, none of this can be a
Gonna beat
match
the
to
joy,
that.
yeah.
So those days was like that, no carry forward of food. So,
Mm.
so I think in general, the nutrition level, though we talk about greater lifespans now, we didn't have to worry and measure and monitor many things, right? Today
Mm.
somebody is a 13, 14-year old. I mean, they are talking BMI, they sort of talking, there are conversations on obesity, putting on weight. It's not that those things didn't matter then, right? But I think there was far lesser need to watch out, because
Yeah.
even if you stayed in a third floor flat, and my aunt, I remember those days, she had a third floor flat, there was no lift. You had to
Yeah.
walk.
You had to work.
And today, for like one floor, right, we're taking the lift. So I think that is the big change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Coming to Bangalore, since you
Mm.
mentioned that, I must talk about it. So that was my college days. So, I went to law school in Bangalore, proud alumnus of National Law School. And, some time ago, you and I were talking about this, right? Those days, Kengeri and, I mean, all those areas, Nagar Bhavi and all, literally used to be deserted. I mean, it used to be very scary. And I used to have a kinetic Honda, and, I mean, we had to come to town for certain things. So it was great time, I mean, it was a lovely time to be there in the authentic spirit of Bangalore. We have relished, and we've really sort of enjoyed. I mean, whether it was a Christmas time, or just anything, right? I mean, even feeling cool in the summers. Those were all experiences that we really cherished. And I think in being away, and away from all the madness, and in your own little small township, was fantastic. And because that was a time you also started understanding yourself, and you were adulting, right? It was your entry into
Yeah,
being an adult. And your parents were not there, and your regular infra was not there, and there's just so much of growth and experiences that I still look back, and I just cherish a lot. So very grateful for that, Sunil. So I think in my childhood, apart from joy, the other emotion is gratitude. Maybe it was not there then, but today when I look back, I don't think I would have traded it for anything, right? We didn't have many things, and there were a lot of things we had to struggle for. But I don't think I would have exchanged that for anything, because it is all these things contribute to who you become later in your life.
absolutely. I think that is true. So every aspect of life is adding something or the other to
Yeah.
this. And yesterday I was late night. I was thinking, saying there was this "why me, why not me" conversation in
Mm.
my head. So I don't think I would exchange any of the spaces to say "why me" rather than "why not me" at some point. It
Yeah.
is all part of who I am growing up at this point, and I think for me that space, that everything is contributing to some point, and that point may not be visible as of now. That's there. So that keeps me grounded. It keeps me very passionate about life. So I am curious also. Like, I think as the coaching language is coming out, but what made you switch from law to say getting into coaching?
So there were many steps in between, Sunil. So I'll trace those. So from law, it was a move to management,
Mm-hmm.
never with an intention of leaving behind the law, or saying that, okay, I mean, this is not for me. I loved, I mean, I loved my time at law school. I loved the internships. I was very fortunate to be training with a lot of senior lawyers. I used to love criminal law experiences, in Delhi, in the
Mm-hmm.
Supreme Court, and all that stuff, right? I think I would have made a very good lawyer, even if I say so myself. But I really enjoyed it. So law. So I think I would never say it was leaving the law behind and switching to management. But again, the other thing about me is I love learning about new things. I love sort of horizontal development is something that I really I think that's me. always, whether it was in school or otherwise. I would have never even been able to, study law, because I was all set for a career in science. And
Oh.
I always wanted to be an engineer. So, but it was so easy for me to make that switch in a moment. Of course, not everybody gets international law school. So, it was a great opportunity. But for me to even not be attached, right, and to do that also is driven by a spirit of learning, saying, okay, this sounds great, let's learn about it, let's see what it holds. So that bit of curiosity, which we talk about even for coaches, right, the curiosity, genuine desire to learn. So all this, I think, is who I am naturally. So I had a very inspiring senior advocate who I was training with, and he actually kind of had done something, went abroad to study management, and he was one of the few people who kind of said, hey, there's nothing wrong. And I think management education, general management, managerial skills, again, these were things that were things I was not just interested in, but I think I had those strengths in me.
Mm.
So I was just not, technically into the subject matter of law. So even in law school, I used to be, volunteer for so many things, be part of committees. I was the convener of the sports committee in National Law School. So all of these things happened. And, so it came to me quite naturally. So I said, okay, let's go and, let's give the MBA a shot. And see and add it and come back and use it in legal practice or something. But life has its own ways, right? So you kind of go somewhere, you discover, and then you say, okay, maybe this is something I must go deeper in. So that's how really the transition happened to management. Again, I was very fortunate to study at one of the finest institutions of the country, XLRI. And there I found my passion and love, not just for, HR was of course something I had chosen to go and study, but also my passion for marketing and sales. So really enjoyed that as well. And again, as life would have it, and if this had not happened, maybe I may have considered coming back and, going back into the legal world. But I got placed with Unilever, Hindustan Lever at that point of time. And, again, that is like a leadership factory. It's a great place to learn. So, and why not, right? I mean, some things, you're destined if something happens. So I said, okay. And then, close to a decade at Levers, really, really loved what I was doing. So many joyous moments, so many learning moments, found my space. In fact, my first brush with coaching happened there. That's where the coaching journey started. So there were parts in between that. And before finally I took up coaching as a career and a vocation, I also did about a couple of years in management consulting, because that was like the next transition for me from, being a leader in an organization to really applying some of those skills and knowledge in service of others. So my first exposure to client work, customer service, all that started. And then of course, into the big world of coaching. And I would still say, still finding my place, taking my steps, exploring it, learning.
Yes, yes, yes. Like good to see that an MCC is also still learning. So gives us PCC some summary of hope. There's always something to learn. So wonderful. I think what was very, very evident, I think, as an individual and even here is the passion that you go into certain subjects or into certain topics with. So I would have to go like slightly deviate from you, if not for coaching, as of now. So is there anything else that you want to do?
Wow. Want to do, wanted to do.
Want to do, as in like the present. Wanted, maybe you can also take the question.
Yeah, yeah. So, even coaching, Sunil, while I think we do a certain service to clients, and there is a certain narrative, there is a certain structure, right? And all that we do. For me, there's always, a larger question, a larger purpose. And to me, coaching is one way of, I think, bringing in social change, uplifting society, creating a far healthier, and if I may use the word, peaceful, resilient, world as such, right? So there's always that larger narrative. And I believe, though we are all drops in the ocean, uh, we all can bring about that change. So for me, it is not simply about, hey, okay, I'm working with this client or this organization. These people are part of a larger system. So I think that bit of being a change agent, being, that bit of being an activist, all this has always been important for me. So without getting into too much of details, I think, yeah, if there's something else that I can visualize myself is to be in public service. And
Interesting.
to serve, to make a difference, to use our voice for the right purposes, be a voice for good, and be a force for good, and all of us can be that. And I think that appeals to me a lot.
Yeah, because I had this, like I was reading a LinkedIn bio, and it says MP at EMCC. I read EMC, I read MP, and I'm like, oh, member of parliament from when? So I was like, when you said social service, then
I still do it in my own way. Yeah? I mean, not as a alternative to coaching or something, but I think that I cannot keep away from. So I'm sort of involved, in some civic activism. So I mean, around my whatever I can, right? I mean, ways I can get involved, or I can contribute, or if I need to, um, you know, take up something, take up a cause, I'm doing it whenever I can. So it's never a either or. And even volunteering is I think is a spin-off from there,
Mm,
because ultimately then you're saying that, okay, let's find ways to give back, and this all of this need not be commercial. There
absolutely.
is the vocation that keeps us going. And I think all of us as professionals, um we need to be doing, I mean, there is a commercial driver for all of us, because all of us also need to live. We need to support our people. We need to do all these things. But I think beyond that, I would say, there is something each of us can give back to society.
Absolutely.
And many times you may say, somebody asked me saying that, somebody who's considering joining as a volunteer leader in the ICF system said, but my doing this small role here, how do you say that I'm really contributing? What am I contributing for? I said, that is something, that vision is something that you will have to look at, step back a little bit, and you will see how
Mm.
it's adding up. Point is, we undervalue our own contributions,
Big time.
and we say, no, this is not adding up. It's just that we can't see it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's like sometime, you'll only have to take the next step forward. You don't know where the other steps are.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
only need to take that forward. I think contribution for me is also like, I think we also vibe on the same
Yeah.
space. So contribution is sometimes, I think, what am I gaining out of it is sometimes what the first question
Mm-hmm.
we ask ourselves. So what will somebody else gain out of, say, me coming into it, or what am I contributing to this
Right.
conversation? Is always a question we need to ask. And sometimes even there, people, I think, rightly said, undervalue themselves. So I was also in that space saying, oh, I'm not doing much. And then after certain statistics and certain numbers were put in my face by my friends saying, oh, look at this. I was like, okay, maybe I will consider it.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So voluntary leadership, I think, was also was a topic that I was very interested to bring it to your
Mm.
attention here. How did that come for? I think because I've seen like whatever you shared, it's a pattern, right? From say National Law School,
Yeah.
now to ICF Chennai, and I think ICF Global. So, what is your passion, or what motivates you to continue doing it?
Yeah, I think the word is continue, right? Because just yesterday I'd put out a post that this was my 6th year as a volunteer leader, as a chapter leader in ICF, um and it's been a great ride, right? It's been a ride filled with ups and downs, learnings, contribution, growth, everything. And it's true. And I've seen this in peers, I've seen this in colleagues. And I'm being vulnerable here. I've seen it at points of times with me as well. There are times when your energy dips and you're asking, saying, hey, why am I doing this? Very, very important to ask the why question,
Yeah.
because that and the answers can change, and the maturity to accept those answers, right? Not to be attached. I mean, 2017, 18, my drivers may have been very different. I think I wanted to come and do my bit. I said,
Mm,
let me, I think I can do all this. I think I can give back. Like the question you asked. I often ask myself, what is the difference that I'm making? Am I part of the audience here? Am I part of the recipient category, or am I part of the giver? So for me, always giver has been more important than recipient. You call that wiring, you call that, I think my parents were both like that. I mean, my mom, she is an epitome of being a giver. My late father was. So I think, when you grow up in that kind of an environment, and there are no discussions even around it, right? You're just role modeling, you're just emulating people, you're seeing that, and you see them work, you see them being happy, you see them being content, and you see them leading meaningful lives. You don't need any more explanation. So I think certainly that had a role to play. So giving greater than receiving, right, was always a philosophy. And surprisingly, in that you will always land up also receiving, right? Rarely there are
Definitely.
times when you give all that you have, and then you are left feeling that, I'm so empty, or my balance has been wiped out. Never that kind of a feeling comes. But the point is, even for people like that, there are moments when the fatigue will come, the why question will come. So I think the operative word that you've used is continue, and must be
Yeah.
very honest that it is about what makes you continue. Um, what makes me continue is simply that, this is not a tick in the box, right? Saying that, okay, I have done my bit. You're continuing to be part of an ecosystem. You're continuing to be part of a profession. And, if all people who have reached a certain level of, growth or journey or seniority, whatever you want to call it, right? You use the word MCC. Um, if people were to back off and go away, then where is all that contribution going to come from? It's not a one time thing, right? You put it and that thing keeps earning interest. No, it is like you keep sort of it is more like an RD than an FD, right? You keep
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
putting that
Keep
in,
putting it.
because that's I would say that's also the responsibility. What is the point of calling yourself or believing that you're at a certain level in the profession if you're not in a position to give back? Continually we have to keep, and we keep talking about raising the bar of coaching, and whether it's ICF, EMCC, or even coaching communities. Everyone talks about, let's keep the standard high, let's keep the bar high. That's not going to happen automatically. I think in our different ways, you can either run an institution, you can be like a leader of a local chapter, or you can be a subject matter expert. You can do something, but giving back is important.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what, one. So one is, I think, default mode. Secondly, the first bencher, right? I mean, which is about saying that, okay, what are the right things to do? Not necessarily what are the easy, or, what feels convenient. So for me, right over convenient has always been important, Sunil. And though I cannot see the immediate result, I just feel it's the right thing to do. So unless, again, right, proven wrong, unless somebody comes and makes a case out of me saying, oh, you're completely wasting your time, right?
Mm.
I would do that. And thirdly, I think, like I said, as we grow in the profession, and you would have found that too, right? Your transition from an ACC to a PCC, your own bar has gone up.
Oh, absolutely.
Your own expectations of yourself and others has gone up, right? You just want to do a lot more. So, and I mean, and, part of this profession, right? I mean, I won't call it an occupational hazard, but an occupational benefit is that, you have to continuously be learning.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any coach in the world who can say, I've completely arrived, or, I have mastered the craft. Simply can't, because your clients are changing, issues are changing, the dynamics are changing, the world is changing. So you have to be on your toes learning all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think also what you said, it's an RD, not an FT. So
Yeah.
when you're contributing, I think for me, whenever I've contributed, I think if I've given X, I've always got 100X. So never been a space where I'm like, why am I doing this? I think there are questions as to why funds are not coming, but the intention has never been a question at all.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes a no-brainer, like we are here to contribute to a larger ecosystem, and let's do that. But like just the right opportunity to say this. I think you've been an inspiration for a lot of Coaches, not necessarily at a coaching level, Vijay. I think I don't know how you coach as an MCC, but I do know that you've been an inspiration as a person. And for me, it was like I said, the fanboy moment is still ongoing. That you've inspired a lot of us, and I'm sure you will continue to inspire a lot of us.
Thank you, Sunil. I mean, that is, like some of this is also, like I started off, right? Some of these things are infectious. So you see that happening, and then there are more givers, there are more people out there making a difference. There are more people who just, feel like even if I'm, putting in 10%, 1% that counts. I think it becomes a force that you can't stop, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it becomes a multiplier. The multiplier effect is for real. And especially in this profession of coaching, which, you and I have again spoken about this earlier, so misunderstood. And I'm not unduly worried about it, because every new profession goes through
Yeah,
that learning curve, and goes through a certain cycle of maturity for people to understand really as to what the value it is adding. So early stages, and especially in developing and emerging markets, I think we will just have to do. I mean, there's no choice, because only if the profession grows, can actually coaches grow, right?
yeah,
And can you even find those opportunities to make a difference? So I think, it's really, I'm glad to hear that from you, that some of this has been inspiring for others in the profession. It just warms my heart, because I just know that then, you or I, or others are really not alone. We're not lone sort of crusaders, but I think there are a lot many more people out there who want to come, who want to, I think, elevate the profession,
yeah,
educate people. I think, you know put coaching at a place where it really needs to be. And we can't rush it. It will take time. It
yeah.
may
It
take the
will take.
next 1 decade, 2 decades, but I'm pretty sure we'll get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you'll have to trust that, it's like growing up. So even though, even though day one you're not able to walk, run, only that you're smiling. One day you'll learn to crawl, then you'll walk, then you'll run. So there is to be that space. And I think, yeah, like you, Jwelji, John, Rachel, I think the list actually is keeping on growing as to some of these wonderful people that I continue to meet across spaces. And I think now with younger people, in terms of just the age number, coming into the equation also into coaching, I think this is a great
But
place
that's
to
amazing, Sunil. I mean, and without
be.
really getting into the numbers and age and all that, I can certainly, I feel, when I see those like you, right? Not just merely wanting to come in, but to, up your craft, to do your hours, to be serious about it, get credentialing, to, um, you know, I think evangelize coaching, do all these things. It really feels good, And sometimes you also look back saying, "Hey, how would have how much more we could have done maybe when we started off going full time into this at that age."
Yeah.
And going full time into a new profession it's not easy. It's
No.
like taking a leap of faith and jumping in, but some point you have to do in. A lot of people also delay that for whatever reasons, right? And that's to each their own. But when I look at this, and I know a couple of other I don't know whether you're a millennial, but other millennial coaches, it is, and even Gen Z, right? I mean, I met somebody who was all of 22 or 23, and came to me, and I do like a lot of mentoring for people who want to become
Mhm.
coaches. Came to me saying that, can you guide me? I want to do my ACC. I said, wow, that's amazing, right? At that time I did not
That
even know what
clarity.
coaching was, leave alone what ACC is. And I just think, having a lot many more younger coaches, though the market kind of still somewhere looks for gray hair and looks for those life wisdom and
That's,
maturity
yeah.
to come in to be a good coach. I think it's not really true. It's not necessary. I'm not saying that older people don't make good coaches. Of course they do. They have life experience more than anything else. But I think people who are younger, I think are innately far less cynical, far more hopeful,
Yeah.
far more energetic in some ways, right? About the changes they want to see in the world, more demanding. So, and these are all great to have in a coach.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
so it's really nice. So my hope is we can actually find ways for a lot more young professionals to come into the profession and, and sustainably create careers for themselves. I think that's important.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very, very important because I think creating sustainable careers in terms of how much do we take home? Because we're always, even if I am not comparing myself, somebody else is
Yeah.
always comparing me with someone else, saying, "Hey, you could have done this." And I see the serious brunt of it, saying I left a career from the tech side coming
Yeah.
into this one. So for me, the comparison is almost like a daily constant. So I'll have to prove myself on a consistent basis saying, hey, where is this going? Why are you doing something like this?
Yeah.
But I do see the space of life wisdom. I think what I have seen in the 3 decades that I've been part of this world is that uh, sometimes people have experience in terms of age. There's also a spectrum that has experience in terms of life at a very quick, very short level. And especially for me, it's come with working with the NGO sector. So I think
Mm-hmm.
their level of street smartness, their level of knowing life and knowing the depth and width of all the spectrum of life that has to offer. I think even at their 25, they've seen life maybe that 60, 70-year-old person may not have seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is there with us as coaches as well, the younger ones especially coming in. And we have, experienced ones like you giving us, keeping the role going, uh, having us play at full potential.
Yeah, you picked on that.
No, I was very curious as soon as I saw it, because the rest of the fonts are normal and the zero or the chakra is there. So I was like, I've been a huge fan of, how the zero, the shunya, the whole
Hmm.
Vedic philosophy comes into this. And I was like, oh, why is the O part really in contention? So I wanted to check with you.
Actually, to be very honest, Sunil, the O, well, I've never paid so much attention to it, but let me sort of retrace it. And this was many years ago when I'd kind of put this articulation together. So I think one is, if you see also, the A's have a different font,
Ah, yeah.
right? So there's like there's a different, it's at a slanted,
Slant, yeah.
right? And I think the reason being that playing, or even the journey, any journey for growth, whether it's life or at work, etc., is never linear, right?
Absolutely.
It's never templatized. And we all have those moments that completely throw us off gear, and life totally slants us. But I think the beauty is in to pick up and again come back straight, and then get onto your line. So it was to bring in that bit of asymmetry.
Mm.
And I love asymmetry. There's something very real about things being asymmetrical,
Oh, absolutely.
right? I mean, it's actually very ideal to want everything neatly fitting. Unfortunately, life is not like that,
Life is not like that,
right? I
yeah.
mean, it kind of really throws the curveballs at you. So I think the A's were that reason to bring that in. And really, if you ask me about the O, I think it also is, that sign of fullness, right? So when you are in that state of your full or highest potential, there is a beautiful fullness, a roundedness about you.
Oh, yeah.
You're so comfortable in your own skin. You're brimming over with all the good things, and that you can support others, you can give. There is that abundance, uh, and I think that's what really being and playing at that potential, which coaching can really enable you to do. I think that's what it creates. So that's why I was not very comfortable having the O in open font, because if you see, everything else is open font, right? So I wanted to sort of fill that out. And perhaps it was the character that allowed itself, in addition to P. So, and of
Yeah.
course, I mean, I'd be lying if I said, the designer in me didn't come in. So I wanted that to be, like a highlight, right? Break the monotony.
So designing is also you. Like I am absolutely now like I think this podcast two material coming in this. I think I didn't get into football. I think which is your interest and passion.
No, no, basketball is.
Basketball.
Football is thanks to my son. So he's
Ah.
crazy about football, but yeah.
So basketball is missed, football is missed, and I think we didn't go too much into a lot of your law school space. And then moving it, like you mentioned Supreme Court, I was like, okay, I made a note says that session two when we come. We
Yeah.
will always have a look at it. So, Vijay, I think we're almost at the top of time. As a coach, I know that we've almost come to that place. So 1 hour is what we promised to
Yeah.
our readers and listeners. So how is this for you? Happy to have episode. How many ever that comes along? So thank you for this.
No, yeah, I mean, I suddenly didn't realize that time has just sped by.
Absolutely.
And that's the magic of a great conversation, right? When time just stands still, and you're effortlessly navigating from from weather in Bangalore to playing at full potential to everything in between. So I think these are all hallmarks of a great conversation. And this is also the space that I think I try to create, and and I think my sense, so do you, in the work we do as coaches. So while coaching is very serious stuff, is pretty heavy duty stuff, I think the conversation need not be that way.
Yeah, yeah,
They can
absolutely.
be that lightness, they can be the energy, they can be the the humor, the laughter, the celebration. So I celebrate this moment, I celebrate this conversation, Sunil, because everything needed to align for this to have happened. And like I
Absolutely.
started off saying, that we had not even planned this today,
Plan this, yeah.
right? For everything to work out, that 1 hour to be available uninterrupted for both of us to really come in with the right frame of mind, etc. I think it's, how do I say, everything kind of came together. But I
Yeah.
also believe that when the intent is right, and you spoke about intent, all the forces and all the stars align with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it just, so all you need as the first step is that very positive, and I think a sense of good intent. So thank you, Sunil, and this has been a very, very enjoyable conversation. And I know neither you nor I had prepared for it, but I think that's the beauty of it, right? So
That's
I
the
do
beauty of
hope
it.
when we listen into this again, it makes sense. I really hope it does, because it
Yeah.
just kind of rambled a lot. But I think I also go back with some themes that I'm carrying away from today, in addition to what I spoke about, coaching and good conversations being a celebration in themselves. So thank you so
Absolutely.